I don't know. Hello. Hey, good morning. It is December 28th, 8:20 a.m. Whoever's in the chat, would you tell me if my mic is still like cutting out right now? Because yesterday I had this like clicking thing and I've researched it and it seems to be a YouTube specific dealio. Like if I record live or stream live on Twitch, for instance, using OBS or some other sort of application to stream, the clicking and the feedback isn't there. So I don't know if it has to do with the audio interface that I'm using and the KVM switch, which sits underneath it. Because I have multiple monitors here. I'm a software developer and I use a KVM switch to like have my personal PC up here and my programming stuff here. So I can switch between the two. And actually, speaking of that, I actually I might have to go because I think I just got paged because I'm on call for work right now. Let me check it out. I wonder if I can disconnect this and see. This might kill the stream. It might not. I'm not sure. How are y'all doing today? Maybe. Will it? Probably. I don't know. We're going to see. Nope, it didn't. All right, cool. I got to see what this issue is. No, it didn't kill it. All right. How's everybody doing? I got to check this page on call at work. Because, yeah, I'm a computer programmer, if you guys didn't know. So, software developer. And I have to go on call for like weekly rotations and whatnot. I was going to be reading story of Abraham today regarding when he gets to Egypt and he's like, he doesn't want something bad to happen to him, and he knows that his wife is apparently like really attractive or beautiful, and if they know that she's his wife, they're going to do things to him in order to get his wife. And so, yeah. See you later. Hey, have a good one. And so, yeah. All right. It looks like another programmer. This is a problem for someone else. So, yeah, we're good to go. All right. I apologize. But having said that, this actually brings up a topic that I've been thinking about lately. So if you read in the New Testament, this is why I love the Bible, because you can like glean wisdom from it, whether you believe in the spiritual side of it or not. So Paul, he's talking about how he doesn't acquire money from his preaching. And you can see that he speaks strongly and he feels strongly about this, that he has made a point to preach the gospel for free completely. And he was a tent maker on the outside. Like he had a job outside of his preaching and teaching. And he makes a point. I think he says that he would rather die than lose the truth. Then lose him saying that he preaches for free, the validity of that statement, that he would rather die than lose that. Which I've been thinking about that a lot lately, because like obviously teaching here on YouTube and other platforms, I don't think I really ever at this point in time, I'm kind of wary of saying this, but I don't ever want to have a point where I am charging people to hear anything from the Bible. I don't like that. I don't think it's, and I'm not saying that it's wrong, but I'm just saying I feel in my heart, for me, I have the knowledge base that I can just like do other things, right? And what that does is it keeps it keeps your character at a point where when others speak about you or think of you as someone to learn from, you're genuine and honest, right? You're not deceptive and you're not doing things for financial gain. Your passion and purpose in what you are teaching stays pure to what you initially started out on that journey to do, right? So yeah, that's just a side note. I'm glad that I didn't have to answer that call. But yeah, just heads up, I may have to like leave at any time. So we'll see. So we were in Genesis chapter 12. I got 2 of you in here. You haven't said anything in chat, and that's okay. I love you. So we'll start at verse 8. It says, this is after Abram was instructed by the Lord to leave, so he left. And I had someone yesterday point out to me that he stopped somewhere, which, for all intents and purposes, I don't read the story, and I think the hardest, I guess, when I look at this, and Abram was like, he just left as the Lord instructed him. The most important point of that to me is that he left, like he started it. Like if you're ever sitting around, let's say, for example, I don't want to say easy. Let's say you're wanting to do something, like go to the gym or something. The hardest part is getting up and going and starting it. That's the hardest part. You may like mosey around from here to there, but if you get up, like just simply stand up and start getting in motion, like start the inertia process, that's the hardest part. And so when I read this, and it shows how Abraham, even though he is touted as like the character of having crazy faith, he still makes mistakes, which I was going to get to today, and I'll get to that now. So I'll start at just verse 8. So he traveled through the land. It said, from there he went on toward the hills east of Bethel, pitched his tent with Bethel on the west and Ai on the east. There he built an altar to the Lord, called on the name of the Lord. Then Abram set out and continued toward the Negev. And yesterday I indicated that was important because he actually took time to stop in his journey to worship the Lord. Despite everything maybe inside of him telling him to go on. And, sometimes when you can receive a promise, you can put a timetable on it yourself that God didn't put on it. And something I've been learning recently is God being so magnificent, he can do whatever he wants with the process that you're in. And even if you like stop in the middle of it, do a U-turn and completely mess up, it's pastors say, and it's said that he can take what was meant for evil and turn it for good. He can turn your mistakes into learning blocks that you can use to accomplish the purpose that he has initially given you. And I think in order to accomplish your calling, the process of it, all the stuff in between A and B, the endpoints, that's where you become the person in order to steward the thing at the end. Or I wouldn't really say it's the end until you die. And then your work here is basically finished in a sense. But I should say your work here is finished in the sense of you physically doing something to input into that mechanism to spread whatever your calling was here on the earth. And hey, thank you so much, Selling. How are you doing this morning? I absolutely love your perspective on things, and I don't even know it yet. Yeah, I'm trying to do something different here where It's actually an active discussion. That's why I encourage people to talk whenever I'm saying something here, I don't care if you agree with me, disagree with me. It's better. I don't want to say it's better if you disagree with me, because then we'll get people that they'll just disagree with me all the time, which I have a friend, her name's Charisse. Maybe she just popped in here. She loves disagreeing, which is actually the reason I reached out to her the first time, because I'm in a self-development group with her. And I was like, everyone else was just going with the status quo on this certain subject that was being presented by the teacher. And she was like, I don't agree with that. And I was like, hey, I like that person. I like the people that can speak up in front of people publicly and say, I disagree with this. And not in like a contentious and prideful or aggressive manner, but with the intent and purpose to actually seek the truth, right? And that's the whole point of this entire like channel and endeavor, is to organically manifest a truth that is greater than our current understanding, each of us as individuals, right? I do not like disagreeing in general, just you. Yeah, I know you disagree with me all the time. I know. It's okay. It's okay. It's good. Thank God. Bless my day, my brother. Hey, your name is Noah. Nice to meet you, Noah. I really, man, I appreciate that. And I do. There's like so much. You're going to make me emotional, but I don't know why. This wasn't my intention when I started going on social media. I have a crazy story about how, like 4 years ago, I felt the call to go on the digital landscape, and I just think God was giving me like a head nod of like, you'll be there someday. And I started uploading to Facebook just me reading the Bible like I'm doing now. Now, it was more completely Bible based, and I wasn't inputting my psychological knowledge base in it, or my philosophical knowledge base in it, or just like my perception of things as a martial artist, or like a fighter, or an artist by definition of the word. I was just basically reading from the text as the text says, right? And then I stopped. And then like 3 years later, I came back and started like posting on social media and whatnot. And I've been on this journey, and God's like opened like crazy doors. Like he gave me, I can't say what he did right now, because if someone, he got me into a door. He got me into a door for free. It wasn't free. That's the thing. God will put you in places where the currency that you have to spend for it is different than the other people had to spend. But if it's a financial currency, just because they spent money to get it in there and you didn't, doesn't mean you didn't pay anything. If you look at my life and see my history, like I don't want to just repeat this over and over, but like being the victim of like attempted murder, it's like I paid things to get the knowledge base that I have. And like God wants me in certain rooms in order to increase that knowledge base and to meet other people and to spread things, right? And so let's say you don't believe in the Bible at all, and you don't believe in God at all. Something that you can glean from that is, just because you got into a room in a different way than everyone else being in there doesn't mean you don't belong there. And it doesn't mean you didn't pay just as much, if not more, than what everyone else paid to get in there. Because for one, money, it's spoken over and over again in the biblical text, and just you can see it in the world. People idolize it in the religious spaces. There's altar calls, and I don't know necessarily how to feel about it, because in one sense, it is some people's idols, and it is something they should sacrifice. Just like Abraham, which we'll get to later in the story, he was called to sacrifice his son, and God didn't really want him to actually kill his son. He wanted to see if he would do it. And some people idolize money, and they need to sacrifice it, like that mental idolization of it, right? So altar calls, in a sense, is like literally putting all of your financial influence, putting that in the hands of God, right? Like investing in something that you shouldn't invest in because you feel God calling you to. Where I get all weird about it is there are people that are very, very good speakers and very influential and powerful. And people will get caught up in that motivational hysteria to feel included. And they'll start thinking that God is talking to them when it wasn't really God. It was just themselves clawing and scratching at the walls that are containing their mental self-image of themselves in their current place in life. And maybe God wants them to get whatever the end destination is for them in a different manner than the product that they're hearing about at the time. Or say they're hearing an altar call and the preacher is like, hey, put your money here, God will bless it. And it's like, I believe that. And at the same time, I believe that someone that's listening and that donated that money possibly did it from a complete human motivational standpoint. Does that make sense? Yeah, I don't mind you. The foot stomp, I don't mind anything you mentioning. So I don't care. I'm happy to talk about it. So yeah, Charisse, it's my way of sharing that I care to give a different perspective. No, it's good. I appreciate that. And hey, please tell me if my mic is like messing up because it irritates me so much. Anyway, I got to start reading on this story or I'm going to get lost in thought. All right. So Abraham, he stopped in his journey to actually like build an altar to God, right? So in that sense, he was spoken to by God directly, and that's powerful, right? If you're spoken to by a divine being in an impossible manner, it's like, man, you're going to have like a fervor and a faith that is pretty different. And so you can get caught up in like the hurriedness of wanting to accomplish what that divine being has told you. And maybe God, as I was saying before I got went off the route a little bit. I do that. You can start putting your own human motivation in something when God wants you to be formed through the process of it, right? And so sometimes it's hard to stop in the middle of it and just give God thanks. Give the higher order of reasoning that is outside of yourself being grateful to that, right? To literally stop, sit down. Well, not sit, but he actually sacrificed sweat, tears, and blood or whatever had to happen there in order to build that altar, right? He sacrificed time as well. And so I think that's important. I can't stress that enough. God honors that 100%. And there's like a ritual to it wherein you believe that the time you are expending on building this altar for the God you believe in, you believe that he will honor that rather than expending the time pushing towards accomplishing your calling. That's a total act of faith. Do you ever listen to the war? Okay, I was wondering, I knew you were going to ask me. Charisse and I are part of this self-development group called Daniel's Den, which is fantastic. And they had a war room prayer call thing. Thank you, Vaporama, for telling me it sounded good. They have this war room prayer call, and it's like a bunch of people, and there's a leader of the prayer. It's pretty much a group prayer online on a Zoom. Do I ever listen to the war room prayer calls? Today, prayer call was on fail-proof faith. He spoke about being fervent in our faith. No, I didn't listen to it. I didn't. I had stuff to do, but I was praying myself actually, and I was reading the Bible, and I had to switch over the on-call pager. But that's awesome that he was talking about that. It's important to be fervent in your faith. But just like I'm describing here, it's it can be really easy to contort that psychological motivation, the fervency, is that a word? To something that originated from you rather than from God or from your faith, because they're two separate things, right? It's like I have a human motivation and like a spiritual motivation, but they both feel the same, kind of. Go back and listen. If I get a chance, I'm ready to listen outside folk. So that's funny you bring up the ready to listen to outside folk. I'll get on that later. All right, so now in verse 10, after he built this altar, then verse 9, then Abram set out and continued toward the Negev. Now, and then it says Abram in Egypt. Now there was a famine in the land, and Abram went down to Egypt to live there for a while because the famine was severe. As he was about to enter Egypt, he said to his wife Sarai, I know what a beautiful woman you are. When the Egyptians see you, they will say, this is his wife. Then they will kill me, but will let you live. Say you are my sister, so that I will be treated well for your sake, and my life will be spared because of you. All right, good. Not page. Say you are my sister, so that I will be treated well for your sake, and my life will be spared because of you. When Abram came to Egypt, the Egyptians saw that she was a very beautiful woman. And when Pharaoh's officials saw her, they praised her to Pharaoh, and she was taken into his place. He treated Abram well for her sake, and Abram acquired sheep and cattle, male and female donkeys, men servants and maidservants and camels. But the Lord inflicted serious diseases on Pharaoh and his household because of Abram's wife Sarai. So Pharaoh summoned Abram, and it says in quotations, "What have you done to me?" He said, which is the Pharaoh. "Why didn't you tell me she was your wife? Why did you say she is my sister, so that I took her? Why did you say she is my sister, so that I took her to be my wife? Now then, here is your wife, take her and go." Then Pharaoh gave orders about Abram to his men, and they sent him on his way with his wife and everything he had. So this is really an interesting interaction that's described here, because it shows that on his journey, Abram was scared still. He felt fear. And, it says that he's like, I understand how attractive you are as a woman. When the Egyptians see you, they will say, this is his wife. He was in fear that they would kill him to take his wife, right? And it obviously was a mistake. It was a lack of faith, which is cool to read, because the guy that is like the character that you usually hear about when it comes to the idea of faith, even that dude made mistakes, right? Which is good from a standpoint of we can have something to tether to them, right? Because some people that we're told to look up to, they seem so far off from us, from where we currently stand, that we can't relate to them. And when you're really depressed, it can be like, there's no way in hell I'm getting to that. Are you kidding me? Look at me. I'm so miserable. I'm so pathetic. I could never have faith like that. But so that's good that they at least described him making mistakes and bad judgment calls. And it does say that he's like, I will be treated well for your sake, and my life will be spared because of you. So he's like saying, look, let's lie. That way I'll live. Because if I die, you're going to end up getting taken by the Egyptians anyway. So this is best for both you and me in order to lie. And it's really great. Shri says, it's a moment when he lacked faith and God protected him. He did what? Yep, it is. It does show that God will protect you even in your mistakes, because God already knows, right? He gave us free will, but he already knows that we're going to mess up. We're going to mess up. Actually, that's something that I've been praying just on a personal note is that God would get rid of my post concussion symptoms. And with my renewed mind, I promised him that I would use it for him, right? Which there are some people that get really scared about promising things to God because it states in the Bible not to break promises with God. It's bad, black and white bad. And I understand that. And I've done that before. I have. I prayed something and I didn't do it. I don't know if there were repercussions on me because of that. Probably, maybe. It was during a time when I was dealing with so much emotional turmoil that I wouldn't have been able to tell between what was repercussions from God or not. Uh, and so in my prayer, when I'm like, hey, heal this and I'll use it for you, I promise. I tell God at the same time, I'm like, you know that there's going to be times when I make mistakes, regardless of me promising that. And I know that your perspective on the world is outside of my reason and understanding. I can't even grasp it. So I'm just going to promise this in the manner in which I have been taught to promise things to the best of my human ability, right? That's what I'm promising you, to do this in the best of my human ability. You know I'm going to mess up on it. And since I know that, you know my heart. And David, who is like the character that you hear about when you hear about having a great heart, he prayed for a lot of crazy things, and a lot of things were not right. And as in, he prayed for people, for mishaps to happen to other people. And so I know God honors honesty and transparency, right? You might as well be transparent with him because he knows everything anyway. And so I know that God, just as depicted here with Abraham, he's a God that will be okay with me messing up. Like even me promising it, it's like God knows as well as I do that I'm not going to be 100% authentic all the time. In fact, me promising that I will use it for you, I told God bluntly, and I'm just like, look, there's going to be times that I'm doing something and I'm thinking that I'm doing it for you because you told me, but it wasn't you. Like, I already know that I'm wise enough to know that I can fall into that trap. Like, I've done it myself, and I've seen other people do it. So I would say, if you get anything from that, pray boldly to God and be transparent. He already knows everything you're doing anyway and what you're thinking. There's no point in holding anything back from him. And I think it exercises you being transparent, just period. Like if you pray out loud, or I would say there's some merit to praying out loud and just being transparent with God, because if you can speak the things that trouble you in the darkness of your heart and your mind, if you can verbalize them, it's like you at least are admitting to yourself that it's real and you know that it's happening and it's something that needs addressed and something that it will happen, and you're just coming to terms with it basically, right? And I think that positions it at a place where not only God, I don't want to say can do something with it because he could do something with it regardless, but it does show that you are admitting, you understand you are imperfect. You understand that you're going to mess up, even if you have the best intentions, even if you think you're doing things right, even if God spoke to you or you perceive it as God speaking to you and you act out on it. If you happen to be wrong, God's got you anyway, right? And so speaking it out, there's a ritualistic sense to that. You're coming to terms with how imperfect you truly are. And you're also sort of sacrificing the image of yourself and your character that you perceive as not being able to push through those imperfections. Because if you're brave enough to say it and hear it with your own ears from your own mouth, you're probably brave enough to push through at least just a little bit. And it's a very minor step in the step forward. And so I would just encourage you to do that. And even if you aren't praying to God, and you want to take anything away from that, verbalizing things is really good for you, or writing them down. It does help. It doesn't make sense, but it does. It makes sense when you look back on it. So he lied. He told his wife to, hey, lie. And then my life will be spared, which by extension, your life will be spared. And so he gave his wife to the Pharaoh, and then whatever. We don't know what happened to her, right? We don't know. We don't know. We don't know what happened. She could have gotten raped. She could have been fed grapes. For all we know, it could have been awesome, could have been bad. And regardless, the Lord inflicted serious disease on Pharaoh and his household because of Abram's wife Sarai. So that shows you that God not only will protect you, but will protect your people. And a wife, your partner, whom you have a covenant with, is important to God. That union is important. It's indicated in the Bible how important that union is. That isn't just a friend. That's something that when you marry them, you're saying, it's a scary agreement because it's like, I will stick with you no matter what. And that's terrifying. Because it's supposed to be a holy union, and it's got really contorted in our day and age now. And it's like, that's hard. And there's obviously cases where, let's say if you were getting abused all the time, I don't think God would want you to stay there. The human side of me wants to say no. Wants to say no. And but I do know at face value it is an agreement to work through whatever, right? Because let's say I marry a woman and she's great, but she goes through something that's absolutely traumatic. And I've dated a girl that got into a car wreck and it really messed her up, which I think, God used that to teach me some things where I was totally planning on staying with her no matter what. No matter what, right? Like I stayed in the hospital bed when she was like recovering from the wreck. I was literally there more than her family was physically, actually. Her parents, like I was there more. And I'm not lying. She would tell you this. So would they. And this was someone at the time, immaturely, I thought that I would marry. And so just how I'm built, I was like, well, if I'm going to be practicing that when I marry her, I better practice that now, right? Like that's just my heart. And so you can be with someone and something happens to them. Like what if a disease falls upon them and it deteriorates their brain where they're not the same person anymore? That's complicated, isn't it? Because they're not doing anything wrong to you. They exist. Their personality isn't there anymore. Right? They're not the same person. But you agreed to that union that you won't leave. And if that's not the union that you make when you're marrying somebody, then I don't know the point of it. It's either it's sacred or useless. That's my viewpoint on it. And so, and that kind of comes into with Abram. It's like, it bothers me that he just like told his wife to lie. I can understand falling into that trap of this is better for your sake and mine, because he heard God talk to him specifically to himself. Like, that's a big deal. If you touch the divine, the way you interact in the world is going to be different. And the way you look at people is probably different. Right? Like, just think about it from a human perspective. If you got talked to by God, people that you know that haven't been talked to by God in that sort of manner, don't you think it'd be easier for you to be like, hey, just go lie, come back for your sake? Because if something happens to me, it's going to be bad for all parties. That's also a way you can contort the calling God's placed on you. Cherie says, I'm working on not verbalizing everything. As an overthinker, I think things that are true that are not, and then say them out loud, and I get myself in trouble. So I'm working on not saying everything. Yep. Hi, Zephyr. And so thank you, Selling. It's okay to cry. I cry all the time. Not all the time, but I do at times. And so it's like, there is, man, it's so easy to contort the calling that is the gift that's packaged and given to you by God, or whatever calling you feel from coming from the outside, or I guess if you didn't believe in Christianity, coming from the inside, right? Something that is outside of what we perceive around us all the time, like something greater. When you just feel called to something greater, like when you're down and out and you're just like, I'm tired of living like this, I want to do more. That's really powerful. And there's also like discipline, and there is a sense of harnessing that sort of motivation and purpose. You know, you have to control it in a way where you're like harnessing it correctly, or else it can just consume you. Or it's just like, I would say, if you were riding a horse, for instance, if you do something that is improper in regards to the technique of horse riding, your horse will buck you off. And I think that's the same thing with that sort of motivational fervor that you get, or the divine calling you get. If you don't steward it correctly, it can veer you off into a path that is incorrect, and you can end up like broken on your ass, right? Does that make sense? Don't I wouldn't say I cry all the time, but does that make sense? That horse riding analogy? You have to learn how to be disciplined with it. Steward it correctly. And you know, the Lord did inflict serious disease on Pharaoh and his household because of that. So you can have faith that God will protect you and will protect others. And he probably protected his wife greater than he would have protected his friend, because his wife was in a holy covenant with him. It's a big investment you're making in a marriage partner. And that's why it's important, because of the fact that you are willing to push through challenges that you wouldn't be willing to for other people. And you're going to create offspring with them, right? You're going to like pass the torch in life, which is important for God to use what you did here on earth and the influence it had on your children to carry on and so forth after you're gone. And Yeah, so the Pharaoh's pissed. It's like, why did you say she is my sister so that I took her to be my wife? Now then, here's your wife. Take her and go. It's kind of funny that Pharaoh had like he knew that the diseases or whatever was from a supernatural source, and he was like, bro, because they believe in their gods too, right? So it's like he's like, something's going on here. And then he's mad at Abram for not being true to his beliefs, right? Because you'd probably think that Pharaoh, from his perspective, he was like, whatever God this guy worships, I am doing something that's messing with the calling that God has on his life. And now the runoff from that infliction is coming on to me. And so this guy needs to be better with his faith. Isn't that crazy? That's kind of funny. Because he rebukes Abram. Why didn't you tell me she was your wife? So I think about that. It's like when you're so disciplined about something, and I say disciplined and not motivated, because motivation is fickle. Well, when you're disciplined about something, even your enemies will know it. And great enemies, you can have enemies that have quote unquote great character that are disciplined themselves. Usually, enemies that are disciplined in that manner have respect for those as well that are disciplined, right? So I find that really interesting because it seems like he rebuked him. And him being a guy that worships gods and believes in supernatural, pharaohs were themselves God in their culture. They were looked at as gods, right? Oh, I'm just telling you, that's how it was. So he believes in that sort of thing. So it's funny that he rebuked Abram for being undisciplined in a belief that he didn't believe in. Sheree says, yesterday we learned about cross-pollination. Today, equine science. It's 360 learning here. Well, I told people, I was like, man, I've been psychotically learning for like a while, like 4 years. I was just like reading and learning and reading, and it's been painful. It's been lonely. And yeah, I just felt like it's time to come out now. I know that. And so that's what I've been doing. And now I'm reading even more. That's why this live chat discussion thing is great, because it totally works towards everything I do anyway. Like I'll go and research stuff, and now I can just apply it here, and we can have discussion with other people. Like that devout Muslim that came in yesterday. That was a great discussion with him or her. That was amazing. I hope she or he comes back. And because yeah, I have just like enemies that respect your discipline. I don't know if I respect the mannerism in which he acts out his faith, and he is willing to speak it to others. Now, I'm 95% sure that that's the same person that came in initially and was confrontational. And as I've said in here before, I don't think that's the best way to go about preaching your beliefs and trying to get others to absorb it. Because let's say if you do that in a confrontational manner, which I have done myself, there's a balancing act to it, because if you come at it from that standpoint, I don't know why others would want to adopt it if they see what it's done to your heart. You know? Because people don't really see the full story. There is a place for being mad and confronting things, but you have to be strategic about it. That's why that saying, be as wise as a serpent. I love that saying because, Lucifer was represented as a serpent in Genesis. He came in the form of a serpent in Genesis in the garden, and to Adam and Eve, and he tricked Eve through being cunning and wise. And we need to be the same way when implementing good in the world. And that can be applied whether you believe in Christianity or not. It's so true. So you need to be tactical about certain things. And you're going to make mistakes. I've made bad judgment calls when I'm trying to give someone advice because I thought that they would be able to take a more blunt and rough packaging to them when that was wrong. And yeah, for instance, like if you were to theoretically talk to David Goggins, if you know who he is, you could tell him anything and he's not going to care, right? In order to get through to him, you're going to have to tell him something blunt or black and white that has the potential to hurt him, that he can see your transparency, or else he's going to throw it away in the trash right away, just for the fact that it lacks those aspects. So there is a place for being confrontational. And yeah, I think all in all, what I love about this little story here is it shows that Abram, even though he's the character in the Bible that is touted as having a faith to aspire to, he was shown to make mistakes. He was shown to, as Cherise said, for all we know, maybe pimp out his wife. And God still had his back. The divine power outside of him still aligned him to the path. It protected those that he was betrothed to. And God put him in charge of being the father of a great nation, of his people, right? Like the genealogical father. And it's amazing that God knew that it was possible for him to make mistakes, and he still put that in his stead. So don't ever think that no matter where you are, you're not good enough to do something that is greater than your current circumstance. Yes, there's a lot of levels to Abram's story. You're ex-Muslim, by the way. I'm happy that are you Christian now? Do you believe in Jesus to be true? I'm curious. Awesome, man. That's sick. That's it. You have a great story, I bet. Because I've never experienced coming from a religion to another religion. And that's something that doesn't get talked about enough. Like yesterday, what if when I was talking to that guy that was a Muslim, it's like, I have a hard time conceiving that in myself because I would never give this up. It feels like a part of who I am. I can't even, it's like incomprehensible to me to think about giving this up for another religion. And I know there's Muslims that feel like that. There's other people that feel like that about their religion. And so that's awesome. You have that experience. You have knowledge about something firsthand that I will never experience. And that's valuable because you can speak to others in a way that no one's going to relate to. A pastor that has been raised a Christian from a Christian home, he's not going to know how it feels being completely passionate towards another God in that sort of sense. Yes, you can make gods out of anything. You can make gods out of money, out of stature, reputation. But I think it's different when you believe something like the Bible. If it's not different, to believe something like the Bible, then I would ask you, if you believe that, then I would ask, well, if that's not different, then how can we say it's different to believe in God as being God than believing money as being God? There has to be a difference. There is a difference. When you believe that something has a divine power to it, when you believe in a story that much, it's probably the same in the same manner as the story that you believe about yourself in a way, because you're experiencing it so firsthand. Like you can touch and feel the things, right? Like I can feel this. That's different. That'd be like leaving my senses for something else. That's crazy. Hey, have a good one, Therese. And so I'm going to end there. And hey, I'm so glad that you came to Jesus. That's amazing. And let me know, everybody, if 8 to 8:30 works. See, I'm on 9:11 now. I usually have a 9 a.m. meeting. I'm going to have to maybe start earlier or do something. I don't know yet. But I love you. And hey, thank you so much for sticking around. I hope you have a great rest of your day. Let me know if there's anything you guys want me to research or want my opinion on. I don't know everything. You guys know more than me on some things. You have to. I didn't live your life. And so I want to learn from you as much as you learn anything from me. And if you have friends you believe that could glean anything from this or add to this, even in a disagreeable manner, tell them. Bring them in here. And thank you so much for coming. And I hope you have a great rest of your day. And man, I love you all. And I thank you. I'll just pray us out and we'll get out of here. Heavenly Father, thank you so much for gathering everyone here. I ask that you imbue everyone with the peace, power, and joy to live in the complete fullness of who they are, who you call, created, and destined them to be in every moment of this day. And for those that don't believe in Christianity, I just ask that you would help them find themselves and help them find the truth of the world that can't be found in the world, and that there is something greater than their current understanding. I love you, Lord. Thank you for everything in Jesus' name. Amen. All right, I'm out of here. All glory to God indeed. You guys have a great rest of your day. I'll be back tomorrow around 8 to 8:30 a.m. What is today? I don't even know. What is it? Wednesday, right? Thursday. It's Thursday. I don't know what's going on. I'm on vacation. All right. So I'll be back tomorrow around 8:30 a.m. ish. I love you. Have a good one. You can reach out to me through any of my social media contacts in the description. I want to say like and just subscribe, but I don't want to say that because I think it's gross. So yeah, have a good day. I love you. Peace. Have a good one. Thank you very much.